There are so many people suffering with chronic pain. And according to chronic pain recovery coach Lisa Noss, the big underlying root of chronic pain is actually your emotions, which is kind of cool because that puts you in charge of your own recovery. And so Lisa is going to share some of her tools so that you can start breaking free of chronic pain today. Get excited because you can find calm in your chaotic life. That voice that says it's impossible is total mind BS. Okay, so welcome, Lisa. I am so excited to hear about how we can take charge of our own chronic pain. So before we get started, you had your own chronic pain journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got to this place?
Basically, in short, had a headache that started out of nowhere. And if you told me at that time when it started a few years ago that I would have that same headache every moment of every day for 3 years straight, I would not have believed you. Yeah, 3 years straight.
Ugh.
And I developed other symptoms over time, like chronic migraine and tight muscles and fatigue. And I kept getting sicker and sicker, and I didn't understand what was going on. Why did I keep getting sicker? There must have been something seriously wrong with me that the doctors didn't figure out yet. And it took me a very long time to like learn any of this mind body healing information that as I'm now a coach and I teach to other people to help them learn how to break free from chronic pain. So thankfully nowadays I'm doing much better and I'm able to share this with other people. But if you're going through your own journey of chronic pain, like I've been there, I totally understand it. And I also hope that by sharing this information with you, that there you can see that there is hope for you as well, because this is all science. Like I kind of geek out a little bit about the science, and that's what I want to share with you.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. How does the
Yeah.
science work and how are emotions connected to this chronic pain?
Yeah, so it's like my understanding and like what I've learned has evolved over time, and I didn't realize how big the emotional component is of it. So like first I'm going to very briefly share with you the like basic knowledge of how our brain works and pain, and then talk more about like the really cool, in my opinion, emotional component of it. So basically, the root of chronic, there's like kind of two roots of chronic pain. First, our brain, no matter where in your body you're experiencing chronic pain, the pain is very real, but it's brain generated. And so, what I'm referring to for everything I'm talking about today is something called primary pain, which means that pain is like the main symptom you have. It's not the reason you're not having pain as a result of a tumor, for example. And so, when you have primary pain, it's most likely it is something called neuroplastic pain, which also is called TMS or mind body syndrome. They're all different names for the same thing, which means that the symptoms you're experiencing throughout your body are very real and they are brain generated. And so the main root of chronic pain is your brain being stuck in a hypervigilant state. At some point, there was a triggering event that started, your chronic symptoms, and your brain is basically sounding the danger alarm through these very real physical symptoms and is not able to turn off the danger. It thinks that you are in danger and that it is protecting you with these symptoms. So something really important, just to like, a new way of thinking about this is that your brain, your body is not giving you these symptoms because it hates you and is out to get you or because there's something seriously wrong. Your brain just believes that you are unsafe and that it is protecting you. So like that's the main root of chronic pain is your brain is stuck in this hypervigilant state. But the other part is why? Like why is your brain stuck in a hypervigilant state? And that's where the emotional component comes in. So I'm just gonna like nerd out for a second here about like a little bit of this, like just a little bit of the science of like how pain becomes chronic. And like this is all like neuroscience. It's basically a combination of neuroscience and psychology. But basically, there's this triggering event where that's when your brain changes and it starts to generate very real physical symptoms throughout your body. It's kind of going like danger, 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 pay attention. Um, but there's that triggering event that starts that. So it could be from an injury. It could be something very stressful in your life, and or it could be something emotionally traumatic, like for example, a death in your family. But the thing is also that there's an emotional root to like no matter what started the, like, whatever the triggering event was. And the emotions all has to do with something called priming, which is that when your symptoms started with that triggering event, it wasn't, that wasn't the thing. Like, that was maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, but your brain has been primed for this for basically years, your entire life, starting from a young age of childhood. And it all has to do with the way our brains work. Like, the main job of our brain is to keep us safe, to keep us alive, not to keep us pain free. Like, pain is actually, when it's not chronic, is a protective mechanism, right? You learn from a young age that don't touch the stove, it's hot, it's dangerous. So you learn these physical things that are dangerous. And every time we learn anything, like whether it's in terms of safety or just like any time we learn something new, we form neural pathways in our brain. And as we repeat these things, as they get reinforced, these neural pathways get strengthened. But we also learn that certain emotions are unsafe. And this has to do with society, the way we're brought up, like our caregivers. For example, girls are socialized to be like the good girl, right? So you might learn that, oh, you can't be mad, you can't be angry. And for boys, you learn that you have to be tough and you can't cry. But what happens to all these emotions is that we don't stop having these emotions, they just get suppressed. Our brain has learned that we can't, that it's not safe for us to express those emotions. And so then we're going to continue going through our life, and like this contributes to forming our personality. And we'll be out in the world and we'll have different experience all based on everything that our brain has learned through our experience of our life. And we'll get to a point where it just becomes too much for our brain, that triggering event happens. But so like when you're, so like once you're in that chronic pain cycle, the way to get, and like your brain is stuck in this hypervigilant state and it can stay in that state for years. It's not going to turn down the symptoms on its own. It needs to believe that you're safe. And this has to do with feeling, physically safe, feeling that your symptoms, the pain is safe, and understanding that connection, that your brain is not out, your body, your brain is not out to get you, but that it cares for you, and changing the relationship you have towards yourself. But also getting in touch with those underlying emotions and teaching your brain that it does not need to protect you from your emotions with these very real physical symptoms, that it is safe for you to feel your emotions.
So how do you do that? Like, how do
Yeah.
you convince your brain that it's safe? And how do you start getting rid of all of those emotions out of your body?
Yeah. Well, I'll go through the process of something called pain reprocessing therapy, also called brain retraining. But also, the really important thing is that we're not trying to get rid of our emotions. We want to be able to express our emotions and teach our brain that it's safe for us to express all of our emotions instead of suppressing them. So, like, there's a few different parts of it. Like, basically, there's the emotional part of this work, and there's also the like changing our relationship toward like the safety part, changing our relationship towards symptoms and understanding that's the science of like what I explained, and not having the doubts, changing our behaviors, not going to doctors anymore trying to find answers, but really believing that this can work for you, and understanding that because of the science, that like you have neuroplastic pain and that these symptoms are very real but brain generated, and that like this could work for you. So like essentially the easiest way to think about it is that there's this concept called sims versus dims. So sims are safeties in me, and dims are dangers in me. And so when your brain believes that you have more dims, dangers than sims, you're going to have symptoms. And so what we do is through brain retraining is we're using these different mind body tools to change that balance away from the dims, the dangers, towards the sims throughout our life. And so that's to do with physical things of, it's not about like avoiding anything that feels unsafe, but it's more of like slowly exposing ourselves to things and repeating those messages of safety, not fearing the symptoms anymore, changing our relationship towards our body and towards the pain, the symptoms. But then there's also that emotional component as well, which is the part I want to focus on right now. Of like that's like being having like fear of our symptoms is a big dim, like a big danger in me. But like also most of us, this is like I didn't mention, this is so subconscious that we're not aware of any of this stuff, and it's not our fault. Like how would we know any of this? Like we were raised, it's all society, like the way that we're raised, and we like our society is like Western society is really not great at being in touch with our emotions.
So true.
Yeah. So but we have like the thing about changing your brain, like because of neuroplasticity, it is our brains are changeable. Like we can change our neural pathways, and it has to do with what we are reinforcing at any moment. So if we keep reinforcing that the symptoms are dangerous, then like we're going to continue to have those symptoms, right? Because like our brain is already in a hypervigilant state. If we're adding more hypervigilance to that, it's not going to change anything. But if instead we're reinforcing messages of safety and kindness and self-compassion and patience with ourselves and changing these high alert behaviors, that starts changing our brain. And like we just have to like repeat that over and over and over again. But the emotional component is a really big piece as well. And we're not starting with like the deepest, darkest trauma, even if you have one. Like it's like you can kind of think of it as your emotions are sort of in this black box. Certain emotions that your brain, your body believes are unsafe for you because it learned this throughout your life. So we're not opening that box right away. We're going to start slowly. And so, like, really, another metaphor that I like to share with my clients is think of it like layers of an onion, where we're slowly unpeeling these layers. And so, first, we just have to get used to having emotions and being okay that we have, like, no matter what emotion we have, and teaching our brain that those emotions are safe. And then we start to express these emotions, not trying to get rid of them, but like learning that it's safe to express each of these emotions. Um, and then like you could do deeper work, like sort of like somatic work of like moving your body and learning how to express these emotions, or dialoguing with your body with the emotions, and journaling. Like there's a lot of different types of techniques I teach, but what I really recommend if you're new to this is starting really slowly and like small, because small changes that we repeat over and over again really do make a difference. Like this is how you form habits. Like you can do something in like 1 to 2 minutes at a time, and if you're doing that every day, it's going to make a difference. You're going to see that difference. And so I love to share with your audience an exercise that they can start with.
Yes, please. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, so I call it, so this is a really easy one. I call it emotional labeling. So basically, what we want to do is just start to get in touch with our emotions and notice that connection between our emotions and our physical symptoms. And even if you don't have chronic pain, this is still a great exercise to start to like pause throughout the day and notice what your emotional experience is. Like it's never going to hurt to get in touch with your emotions. So basically, what I tell anyone with chronic pain is to, anytime you have an increase in physical symptoms, is a good time to do this exercise. But if your symptoms are very stagnant, like the same throughout the day, you can choose a few times, like first thing in the morning to check in with your emotions, and end of the day, and maybe one time in between. But basically, what we do with emotional labeling is you pause, you take a few breaths, and then you ask yourself, I like to do this out loud because I think it really helps strengthen that connection. You ask yourself, what am I feeling emotionally right now? And then you start labeling those emotions out loud. And you can repeat them as you feel that emotion. So, like, for example, frustration, anger, frustration, sadness, disappointment, frustration, and like keep going for like 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Some people are going to have a harder time with this if you've been blocking your emotions for longer. Like it might not be as available to you, but that's why this is so good to do, to just start making that connection that we have emotions. And then later on you can get to this point where you're like really noticing those patterns, and from noticing those patterns is where we can really make big behavior changes. So I can give you an example for myself. Like after having done brain retraining and feeling better, I still do this work. Like for me, I'm at the point where I I will still sometimes get physical symptoms if I'm not so great at being in touch with my emotions, because there's certain things that my brain still feels like it needs to protect me from, because those have been like the key emotions for me. So like the main ones for me, and it's not just like emotions, but it's more, I mean, maybe it's like more complex. Like for me, the main thing is like anything around not feeling good enough, and anything around overwhelm. Like my symptoms started from a place of overwhelm where I was working at a job and just like very stressed, very overwhelmed. And it took me a long time to realize that overwhelm has been something that has not felt safe for me for a long time. Like when I was a kid, I realized that I was sort of shut down and I needed my parents to do things when I was feeling too overwhelmed. And so my body has been protecting me from that feeling of overwhelm for a long time. And it really hit that triggering point when the symptoms started, when I was just overworking and pushing myself too much. And so now I feel really good most of the time. But let's say I'm, trying to finish an email and I'm like, oh, I'm, starting to feel a headache coming on, but I really am just going to finish this. I'm going to push through. And I start to notice that overwhelm. My brain is like, Lisa, nope, you promised you're not going to do this anymore. When you get overwhelmed, you said that you're going to change your behavior. And so my brain is kind of calling me out on it of like, no, pause. And there's so many times where you don't want to pause what you're doing, you just want to keep doing it. But even taking like a minute to pause and check in with your emotions helps so much. But also, the really key part of that is that I'm not going back to doing the same thing I was doing before. My brain gave me that signal. I'm shifting the behavior in some way. Like I'm acknowledging it. I'm talking to my body. I'm saying, thank you, brain, for letting me know you were right. I am sorry. I promise I wasn't going to push myself so much. I am still going to finish this email, but I'm not going to have that frantic energy around doing it. And like, because I'm at this point where I've been doing this for a while, symptoms calm down quickly. But if you're having chronic symptoms that are continuous, we don't even start. Like, this is just showing a place of where you can get to, where if you're like, a lot of people before they start this work think you're going to get to this point where you're like happy and all the time and that there's nothing that ever goes on. And that's just not realistic. We have emotions all day long. And it's really about learning how to ride the waves of them and be resilient. But like once you're learning how to break free from chronic pain by treating the root, by doing the brain retraining, you're not having the physical symptoms. Instead, you're having these emotions, which is actually a good place to be, right? Like we think, oh, I just want to feel good all the time, but like that's not what's going to happen. Instead, you learn how to be more resilient, and that's the really beautiful thing.
Yeah, because you're still living life, right? Life is not perfect. So,
Yeah, it's hard. There's like a lot of times of difficult things, but you learn how to feel those emotions, allow yourself to express them, and then move on with your day.
yeah, and live pain free or like with reduced pain. So that's good. So
Yeah.
you actually have a resource to help people get started and stop their pain in its tracks when they get flare-ups. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I have like a bunch of different things, and one of the ones I just really like that I created is about how to stop a flare up in its tracks. And so if you're struggling with flare ups, I teach you more about like what your body is trying to communicate with you, like really what your brain is trying to communicate in that moment, and some tools that you can use. And so you can um, you can check out my Instagram at Lisa Noss Coaching, or I'm also on TikTok, and also lisanosscoaching.com. And probably the best way to get the resource is to check out the link in my bio on Instagram. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes as well. And also, like, it's on, if you email me as well, Lisa at lisanosscoaching.com. I'm happy to chat more with you if you have any questions. But also, like, I love to book a free discovery call with you. I offer free 30-minute discovery calls. And I work with all my clients one on one. So you're really getting that catered support of exactly what you are struggling with, catered to your needs. So yeah, definitely check out that resource and fill out the form on my website, and we'll book your free discovery call.
That sounds amazing. So I will drop all of Lisa's links into the
Thank
description so
you.
that you can find them and access those free resources, book your coaching call so that you can figure out what is the root of your chronic pain and how can you take charge of your life. So Lisa, before we sign off today, I'm wondering if you have one key message that you can share with the audience, one big takeaway you're hoping they'll leave with today.
Yeah, this is the thing I actually share with everyone is that like when you're doing this work, like I know you've been through a whole journey going to all these doctors and everything, and this might be the first time you're hearing this and you have doubts, but really the most important thing to do, no matter what, is to just be so kind to yourself. Be more self-compassionate than you ever thought possible. Like that, like if you do nothing else, that's the most important thing you can do to heal.
Amazing. And it feels good too. That's a great lifelong thing is to treat
It's
yourself
so
like your best
true.
friend. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Well,
really true with everything with chronic pain, that like the healing that you're doing, it helps with everything else in life. Like this work of emotional resilience is just an incredible skill to have, and it helps to heal chronic pain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, benefits all around. And you're showing the next generation how to do this emotional work so that it just becomes
Mhm.
a normal part of our everyday life, which is my biggest passion. So
Yeah, and
amazing.
you're breaking the generational cycles as well, which is amazing.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Lisa, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina. Bye, everyone.
Hit subscribe and let's see if we can make life balance the norm.